Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 433, Optimizing Fertility Through a Plant-Based Diet with Lisa Simon.
In this episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talk with Lisa Simon all about optimizing male and female fertility through the use of plant-based diet, but it's more like unpacking some of the preconceived notions around diet and pregnancy and really looking for real answers. We look at what do you need to be eating? Can diet affect male fertility as well as female fertility? What role do saturated fats, carbohydrates, and grains really play? And these are things that are hard enough for us to navigate when we're not trying to conceive or not pregnant. Never mind when you are. So you're going to get a lot of the specifics on what you want to be eating while you're pregnant and really keeping the baby in mind and what you don't want to be eating so that it doesn't affect your fertility. You're going to get some really great ideas today. So make sure that you take notes and share this with anybody who might be looking to get pregnant.
Lisa Simon has worked for the NHS since 2014, specializing in gastroenterology. She left her full-time post in 2019 to focus on her freelance work, but continues to run weekly clinics there. Her special area of interest is optimizing fertility with a plant-based diet, and she's passionate about providing compassionate care using all the pillars of lifestyle medicine in order to fully benefit her patients. This is a really great episode, especially to listen to this time of the year. It's the holiday season, so happy holidays to everyone listening. It's almost New Year, so happy New Year to all of you. And those of you starting a family, you're going to want to listen to this episode. So share it out with anyone you know who's looking to do that.
Research is all the buzz with weighted blankets right now, perfect for insomniacs with racing minds, sleepers who toss and turn, those who wake up many times at night, and those stressful days or anxiety that keep coming up for you. Check it out at planttrainers.com/hush, HUSH, and use the coupon code PLANTTRAINERS, all one word, all capitals, PLANTTRAINERS at checkout.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm just grateful for 2021. It was not a year that we would have ever foreseen a couple of years back. There's been ups, there's been downs, but in the end, I think we all grew. We've overcome so much and really been blessed to be able to help so many more people than I maybe normally would have been able to. So 2020, I am grateful for you. Sorry, 2021, I am grateful for you.
I am grateful for this time of year. It's the holiday season. We get lots of time to spend with family. It's a new year. For a lot of people, it's a fresh start. I'm just grateful to be able to start fresh every day and not have to wait for the new year. But for those of you that do, Happy New Year, happy holidays. Hope you enjoy the episode.
Happy New Year, everyone. Lisa Simon, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers Podcast today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here.
Yeah, we are excited to talk to you today. And before we get into the tofu and potatoes of the show, we wanted to know if you have a moment of gratitude to share with us and the listeners.
Well, I think today it was something very small, but I woke up by myself for the first time without being woken up by my child this morning. So I managed to go downstairs, make a cup of tea, go back to bed and read my book for 20 minutes, which was incredible. And it really made a difference to how I started off my day. So I feel very grateful for that today.
So while you said that was something small, but to you, that's not necessarily a small thing. To other people, they might say, oh, that's no big deal. But to you, that makes a huge difference in your day. So that's just something to be aware of, that a moment of gratitude can be taken at any time. And it doesn't have to be something big. It could be something small, but the impact that it has on your regular day can be huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we remember those days where we did not wake up on our own as well. And I think that our whole nervous system reacts differently when we wake up with our own internal clock, right? Like we go through the stages of waking up as opposed to boom, going from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, it really does. Because you feel shaky, don't you, almost when you're kind of ripped out of your sleep rather than waking up naturally.
And the cortisol levels, right? And your adrenal, just like your whole hormone system gets shocked instead of going through stages. So tell us a little bit about how you found a plant-based lifestyle.
Mine all started when I was experiencing fertility problems myself. So I had absent irregular periods, more absent for well over a decade. They didn't really know what was the cause of it. I tried lots of different things to try and regulate my cycle. I stopped exercising as much. I tried to gain a bit of weight because even though I was a healthy weight, I was at the lower end of the range. I tried what I called a healthy diet. So lots of lean chicken and fish and salads and things like that. But it wasn't until we tried to conceive our little one, who's now 3, that we realised that there were some problems. And we ended up having to go through IVF treatment to have him. And it was during that time I stumbled across plant-based nutrition. So I was a bit sceptical because I'm a dietitian and we were taught, you have to have meat and dairy for various nutrients. But the more I looked into the science, the more I realised there was something there. So my plant-based transition was fairly quick. So the meat and the fish and the eggs went first. But I still was a bit concerned about giving up dairy, especially when I found out I was pregnant. So the first cycle worked, which was amazing. But then my little one was diagnosed with cow's milk protein allergy when he was 6 weeks old, and he'd been quite poorly with it. And it was at that point I just gave up overnight because I was feeding him. And within a matter of weeks, he was much improved. And within 2 or 3 months, maximum 3 months of me going fully plant-based, my cycles returned, and they've been completely regular, 28 to 30 days ever since. And that was over 3 years ago now.
And that was postpartum as well. So most people don't even get a cycle or a regular cycle postpartum as it is. And you, after having so much trouble all those years, going plant-based, got it back so early on after having your son.
Yeah, it was amazing. And that to me, that's why I'm so passionate about helping other people, individuals, couples to conceive.
So what is it about the food that made the difference? Is it adding in more plants, or is it removing the animal product, or a combination? What actually makes the difference?
It's definitely a combination of the two, because there are things in animal products that can be so damaging to fertility. And they include heme iron. So that's the iron found in animal products, and non-heme iron is in plants. So the heme iron is what's called a pro-oxidant. So it causes inflammation, damages cells and DNA. And we have large data from the Nurses' Health Study 2 that looked at over 18,000, kind of a cohort of 18,000 women, a sub-cohort. And they found that women who had higher intakes of heme iron had lower rates of fertility, and women who had higher intakes of non-heme iron, so plants, had higher rates of fertility. And it was the same with animal protein as well. So they found that replacing 25 grams of animal protein with equivalent plant protein reduced the risk of ovulatory infertility by 50%. So, there's quite significant findings there. And with men, high intakes of iron can cause impaired fertility, loss of libido as well as too low intakes. And the thing with the iron is that with heme iron, our bodies do absorb it more efficiently, but actually we absorb it too well. And once we have absorbed it, we have very limited capacity to excrete it again. And because it's that pro-oxidant, that's not a good idea to have high levels in your body. Whereas with non-heme iron, we're much better at regulating it. So if our stores are low, we absorb more. If our stores are plentiful, we absorb less. So it's much better to get your iron from plants. And of course, animal products are full of saturated fat as well, and trans fats as well. And they've both been shown to be damaging to both male and female fertility. Higher intakes of monounsaturated fat, so that's extra virgin olive oil, avocados, nut seeds. That's been shown to improve female fertility. And higher intakes of polyunsaturated, so that's your omega-3s, they've been shown to improve male fertility. And there are also things called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, in animal products. And again, they attach to receptors throughout the body, but there are receptors around the ovaries, in the uterus, in the testes. and they cause inflammation there. They can actually prevent the embryo from implanting if they attach in the uterus, and they can cause early ovarian aging if they attach to the follicles around the ovaries.
So there's so much in there, and I feel like I should have jumped in to be like, wait, I have a question, but you were speaking so beautifully, and I wanted you to go through that. So let's go back to the iron for a little bit. So the heme iron products are coming from the chicken, the beef, the livers, all of the meat. Is it also coming from the fish? Is it also coming from the dairy?
Yeah, it's in all animal products.
And then give us an example of some really good high iron foods from the plant world so that people kind of say, okay, this is what I need to concentrate on if I'm trying to work on fertility.
Yeah, it's difficult to beat tofu because people don't realize that tofu has comparable amounts of iron as red meat. And, soya is so health promoting, and despite all the myths out there, none of which are true, it's an amazing thing to have in your diet. And also whole grains and chickpeas and lentils and beans and vegetables, everything really has got iron, but you need to make, all foods, but you need to make sure that you're having a source of vitamin C with your plant-based iron to increase absorption. And you need to make sure that you're not having tea or coffee, red wine, cocoa with your meals, because that will stop you from absorbing so much of it as well.
I'm so careful with me and my clients to set an alarm for about 30 minutes between taking in a good meal or taking in any supplements and having the coffee or tea, because it's morning routine. Drink your water, take your supplements, have your coffee, move on with your day. But you want to really keep that apart. And what you said about soy, I was on Instagram the other day and I saw a meme or a picture or whatever it is of an almond. No, I guess it was a soybean. And the eye looked like the eye had been injured. And it said, soy is dangerous. And I'm like, whose account is this that I'm following? I don't understand. What do you mean soy is dangerous? I want them to show me the proof so that I could show them the proof. And I'm getting all worked up and I'm like, I need to unfollow them. And then I realized they're saying with the edamame beans, when you press on the pod and it goes flying out and it hits you in the eye, and like that's why it's dangerous. And I thought it was so funny.
So when it comes to plant-based nutrition, everyone's biggest question is, where do you get the protein? And everybody's second or third question is the iron. And a lot of people that aren't eating plant-based are concerned about the iron. They say you can't get iron on a plant-based diet. And you just gave us some examples. But I'm wondering if you could explain to us why there's such a misconception, or why it's so prevalent out there for people to think that you can't get the appropriate iron. And I think it has to do with the absorption and how to absorb it, but maybe you could speak a bit more to that.
Yeah, I don't know. There are so many misconceptions out there about plant-based diets. And I think it's along the same lines as, you need meat to be a man and you need meat to build muscle. I think a lot of people still think you need to eat red meat in particular to get your iron. And, red meat is so damaging to health, especially processed meats. And it still amazes me that since 2015, these processed meats have been classed as a class 1 carcinogen, meaning they are cancer causing. Yet there are no health labels on the foods. It doesn't seem to be widely known. And red meat increases the risk of certain cancers as well. So it's so much more helpful to get your iron from plants, and it's so easily achieved. And actually it's interesting because I've always had low ferritin levels, so iron reserves, and they've always hovered right on the lowest end. But since becoming plant-based, they're the highest they've ever been. So, to me, that just shows how good your body is at regulating the non-heme iron in plants.
I want to put a pin there for a minute, and I want to talk about that just to reiterate to the audience that when we go to the doctor and we get our blood taken and you get that little exclamation mark to let you know that you're, out of range, there's a range. And that range is based on general society. It's not necessarily specific for you. It's the average of what's happening in society now, not necessarily the optimal for society, but you've got to look at your own body and your own metabolism and your genes, and you've got to look at your history too. So if you haven't had a blood test and you go and you've just become plant-based and you go and your iron's low, your doctor is going to tell you probably with that, if they don't have a big understanding of nutrition, that your iron's low because you've become plant-based. You need to get more iron in either by supplementing or eating heme iron foods, right? But what you've really got to do is go back in your history, go back to old blood tests and take a look and see, where is your baseline? Where are you starting from? And if you've always had a low baseline, but you've always felt great, and you were able to perform sports, and you were sleeping, and you did well or well enough in school, and you maybe did have some babies on your own without some fertility issues, but your iron levels have been low, but you feel great. It doesn't mean that you're deficient. It means that you have low iron. So same with me, my iron went up after becoming plant-based, but I always had a really low baseline. So right now I'm always borderline. I'm always like two marks lower than general society. But for me, it's totally fine and it does well. So I think people need to be careful. You don't need to be at the high end, because you're comparing yourself to other people's bodies. So it's really easy to get caught up in, I need to do more, but you don't always.
Yeah, and it's important to say as well, iron deficiency anemia is the most common nutritional deficiency in the world among any dietary groups. So vegans are not higher risk of having iron deficiency anemia, despite what people may think.
When your body is working at an optimal level, when your body is performing well, when your body is absorbing more, like Adam was talking about, that's when you start to utilize the nutrition that you're taking in more. And often we need to take in a ton of nutrition just to absorb a little. So if we can make our body more efficient at absorbing at a higher level, that's really where it's at. So in terms of fertility, is there a time when people should start going plant-based? I know people are worried about going plant-based right before they start to conceive, because will they be taking in enough nutrition? So when do you suggest people start to make the change?
Well, I always say,
I just wanted to pop in here to say that sleep is everything. And if you've heard about weighted blankets lately, you know what they can do. If you're someone with a lot of stress, if you're someone who's not sleeping throughout the night, if you're someone who needs to perform better throughout the day, check it out, because Hush blankets are reducing stress, lowering cortisol, increasing happiness. They are a tactile bliss. The blankets are covered with a super soft minky thread, which our son loves and refuses to go to sleep without at night. The inner blanket is made from a super comfortable microfiber material, and that means that you could sleep directly under it. So if you're someone who's too lazy to do laundry, don't worry, because they've got you covered. Check out planttrainers.com/hush, that's HUSH, and use the coupon code, all capitals, plant trainers, one word, PLANTTRAINERS, at checkout for an amazing Plant Trainers discount. And now back to the show.
It takes around 90 days for the sperm to be produced and for the egg to mature. So that's the minimum time that you should be looking at, increasing the plants in your diet and becoming plant-based. But ideally longer. In some groups, some patients might need longer. For example, if they need to gain quite a significant amount of weight or to lose some weight, they might need 6 months or possibly even longer than that. But 3 months is the minimum, I would say.
Are there other nutrients that are important for people to consider when they're thinking about fertility?
Yeah, there are so many. I'll just go through a few, otherwise I'd probably be here all night. But zinc is really important, because low zinc levels have been associated with lower serum testosterone, so not great for male fertility. And also it's needed for the whole ovulation. Go on.
Sorry, I thought you were moving on to the next one. Tell us where to find the zinc.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say it's actually more important for men, because they have slightly higher needs than women, because they lose zinc with each ejaculate. So you can imagine if you're trying for a baby, you could be losing quite a lot of zinc. So zinc can be found in whole grains and nuts and seeds. I always say to my male patients, try having a handful of seeds every day, because that's a really easy way to get your zinc in. And you can throw it into your porridge or your overnight oats or a smoothie. You can eat them as they are, as long as you're having a variety of seeds, so including the omega ones as well, so the flax and the chia and the hemp. And yeah, for women it's important because it's needed for the whole ovulatory process as well. So then another one would be folate, and again, completely abundant in a plant-based diet. So you're looking at leafy greens and lentils and oranges and fortified foods. And folic acid alongside the dietary folate is essential. And most women will need 400 micrograms a day, but some groups will need a much higher amount of 5 milligrams. So they need to go and see their GP in that instance. And that includes women who've had a history of neural tube defects, because folate and folic acid is very protective against that. Also, women who are on anti-epileptic medications will need higher doses as well. But there's quite a long list, so speak to your GP if you're concerned. And folate is needed for healthy sperm and for the ovulatory process for women as well. So, and it's important to say, even if you think that you're getting enough folate in your diet, do always take the folic acid supplement. And sometimes in pregnancy, or often, you feel so sick for the first 3 months that you might not fancy a whole food plant-based meal. You might just want something beige, plant-based but beige, which isn't going to produce or provide that much folate. So it's really important to take the supplement.
And who would take that supplement? The male or the female, or both?
The female.
Okay.
The female. I don't tend to recommend men take it, as long as they're getting plenty of folate in the diet as well. So choline's another one that's really important. It's as important as folate and folic acid, because it also helps prevent neural tube defects. And it's also needed for the brain and the central nervous system development of the baby. So you don't necessarily need to take a supplement, as long as you're having plenty of choline-rich sources. So soya is another. Soya basically covers everything. It's one of those, I don't say superfoods, but it really is a good food to have in your diet. And also quinoa and nuts and seeds. So you don't necessarily have to take a choline supplement to meet your needs in pregnancy. And then a final one that I'd say is iodine, which is so important. It's needed for hormone health. It's needed for male fertility, but it's also classed as a key nutrient for the first 1,000 days of life. So that's from the time of conception to just before the child's second birthday. So it's really important women in particular optimize their iodine intakes during the fertility preconception period.
And that's been one that people have been having trouble with in the last, I'd say decade or so, because we've moved away from table salt and we've moved into pink Himalayan salt and all of these other alternative salts, which are great. I think it is a good move, but the regular table salt was always fortified with iodine because they recognized that we weren't getting enough here in North America and parts of Europe as well. So including seaweeds into the diet can be a really great way to make sure that you're covering that as well.
Yeah.
What else do you recommend? Yeah.
You need to be careful with the type of seaweed. So definitely avoid kelp, because it can be so high in iodine that it can throw your thyroid off balance completely. And that applies to the supplements as well. If you're taking a supplement, don't buy a kelp-derived supplement. It needs to contain either potassium iodide or potassium iodate, which is the safer forms of iodine. So, and people say, dairy is the best form of iodine, but what they don't realize is it's because the equipment is cleaned with iodine. It's not actually in the milk itself. So it's quite revolting when you think about it. So yeah, seaweeds like nori and dulse flakes are good contributors, but I always say take a supplement, and it should be a maximum of 150 micrograms, so no more than that. And then fortified plant milks can make really useful contributions as well.
And so you said no to kelp, and that made me think, well, that means there's probably other foods in the plant-based world that we should be avoiding when we're trying to be fertile. So are there any other plant-based foods that people should be avoiding when trying to be fertile?
Ooh, I've never been asked that question before. Not that I can think of. It's only really the iodine that's the problem, because it's so damaging to your thyroid. But I can't think of a single other plant food, apart from if you're going to go foraging for mushrooms, which you should never do if you don't know what you're doing, that can be harmful in any way.
The oils from saturated fats are okay, like eating avocados fine and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so the monounsaturated fats in avocado are really important. The only plant oils that I would avoid is coconut oil and palm oil, because they are so high in saturated fat, especially coconut oil. You're looking at roughly 85-87% saturated fat. And it's often marketed as a healthy food, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're doing baking, just throw in some applesauce instead. Replace the oil with the applesauce, and you're good. So let's talk for a minute about low carb diet and low fat diet and some of the myths around that and what you would recommend. And I'm laughing already because I know your answer. I assume I know what you're going to say, but go ahead and talk about that a little.
So low carb diets are probably one of the most fertility damaging diets that you can go on. It infuriates me when some fertility clinics actually recommend low carb diets, because not only are the carbs mainly replaced with animal proteins, which, as we've already discussed, is damaging to fertility. Also, you're taking out fiber, which is so hugely important for every aspect of health. And especially when you have hormone-driven conditions like polycystic ovaries or endometriosis. And PCOS is the leading cause of infertility in women. And it's really important that you have lots of fiber with PCOS, because it prevents those spikes of insulin and blood glucose levels, which make the condition harder to manage. It also, when your liver is removing the toxins from your body on a daily basis, that includes getting rid of excess hormones, and they go into your bowel. And if you don't have fiber there to bind with those hormones, to release them in your stool, they just get recycled, and that hormone imbalance continues. So the fiber is so important. It's packed with nutrients, and it's good for bowel health. If you're constipated, you need more fiber. You have to drink lots of fluid as well. But there's just so many benefits to carbohydrates, but it's getting the right ones. So they're not all equal. Choosing where you can whole grains, so brown rice, red rice, black rice, whole wheat pasta, quinoa, barley, all the lovely grains, and just minimizing the more refined ones, so the white pasta and rice, etc., which have much less or pretty much negligible fiber content.
And then what about the low-fat diet within the plant-based world?
Yeah, again, really damaging. And I see a lot of women who have far too low fat intakes when they're trying to conceive. And fat is really important to build hormones and for the whole, fertility process. But again, it's getting the right fat. So minimizing the saturated, trying to avoid the trans fats, and replacing them with those more healthy plant sources. So plenty of avocado and nuts and seeds, and extra virgin olive oil as well has been shown to be anti-inflammatory. So that's perfectly fine to have. I'd avoid cooking with it. So drizzling it, on your salads and veg. And also you need fat to absorb fat-soluble vitamins. And again, they're really important. And especially vitamin A, which is really important for fertility. So if you're having butternut squash or sweet potato, those red, orange, yellow fruits and veg, you need some source of fat with them to help your body absorb that vitamin A.
So talking about oils is not something that we do too often on the show, because when we're not talking about fertility, a lot of our doctors are promoting low fat, right? Low saturated fat, heart healthy diet. So what do people need to look for if they are choosing extra virgin olive oil to make sure that they're getting the least toxic as possible?
So you want to look at the cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, because you can get olive oils that are more processed. So if you look for extra virgin olive oil on the label, then that's the best one to go for.
Great. So we are recording this a little bit in advance from when it's coming out. So today happens to be October 15th, which I don't know about in the States, but in North America, it's Pregnancy, Infant, and Loss Remembrance Day. So I thought that was a little bit of a coincidence that we're talking today. They say 1 in 4 people have experienced a loss of a fetus or an embryo or a fetus or an infant, what have you. And we're 1 in those 4. What advice or what can we leave people with if they have been trying and they haven't been successful yet, or they have experienced loss? What do you want people to know?
It's so tragic because, I know so many people who have suffered a loss, and lots of people blame themselves, think it's something they've done, and most of the time it's unexplained. It's something that happens in the very, very early stages. The best thing to do is optimize your whole lifestyle. As nutrition is only one piece of the puzzle, and I practice lifestyle medicine, which includes the 6 pillars. So nutrition is just one of those pillars. You need to look at your stress, your sleep, your physical activity levels, avoiding toxic substances, so looking at your alcohol intakes and caffeine intakes, and really nurturing those relationships you have, making sure you're having really positive, supportive relationships. And stress and sleep are so important when it comes to looking after yourselves. And I think people underestimate the effects that poor sleep and stress can have. So I always go through stress management techniques with my patients. And the less stressed you are, the better you will sleep as well. And we live in such a fast-paced society, and it's getting worse. And people have so much to think about and often go to bed with racing minds, or if they're on their phones or their tablets, or watching TV in their bedrooms. So anything you can do to help optimize your sleep and reduce stress will be really beneficial as well.
And I think it does help to know people aren't alone, and other people are in those situations too. And it's one day at a time. But yeah, it's not our fault, but there are things that we can do just to try to optimize it for the next time. Exactly. So thank you for those words.
Lisa, I think that was a really good way to put it, because we have nutrition under the microscope today, and we really need to remember to take a step back and look through that telescope and see that there's really a bigger picture than just one aspect that has an effect on all of us in every way. So thank you for sharing that. If people want to reach out to you or check out what you're doing, where would you like them to connect?
So I work for Plant-Based Health Online. So it's plantbasedhealthonline.com. You can book a free inquiry call with me that's 10 minutes. So, to have a bit of a chat to see how I can help. And you can also book appointments directly there as well. I'm also most active on Instagram, on social media. So that's, I always forget my tag, lisa.simon_rd, I think. And that's where you can find me on social media. We also have a Plant-Based Health Online Facebook page as well. And there's also some amazing resources at Plant-Based Health Professionals. So I've written a fertility fact sheet, and there are so many amazing plant-based fact sheets on there. So do take a look on there as well.
So thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers podcast today. Like I said, we will link to all of your socials and website at planttrainers.com. And we really do appreciate all of your expertise and your words of wisdom that came out today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's been really lovely speaking with you both.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it really helps other people find us, just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time
and have a healthy day.
Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.